Most businesses that struggle to scale do not have a lead problem, they have a people problem. They hire sales reps, they throw them into calls and wonder why ultimately nothing is closing, or they spend months building a team only to watch it fall apart because nobody knew what they were supposed to be doing. The truth is, building a sales team is one of the highest leverage things that you can do in your business, but done wrong, it is one of the fastest ways to waste money, time, and momentum. In this video, I'm going to give you a full framework, right? Everything from how to recruit the right people, how to interview them, how to onboard them properly, how to structure their compensation, how to track the right numbers, and how to build a culture that actually performs. This is the stuff that separates a sales team that actually does serious revenue profitably from the ones that ultimately just cost you money and are unprofitable. My name is Senan Campbell. I am the founder of Salesify, and we build and fix the sales infrastructure behind high-ticket coaches, agency owners, and just general service-based businesses. One of the most consistent things I see when I come into a new business is that the sales team, if there is one, has no real structure around it, right? There's no proper recruiting process, no onboarding doc, no accountability system, no clarity on what good actually looks like. And the founder is simply just, hiring people, hoping they figure it out, and then they're surprised when they don't. Today, I'm going to change that, and this is the full playbook. Let's start at the beginning, which is finding the right people. The way most people approach recruiting is, they post a job, they get a bunch of applications, they pick whoever seems is the best based on, a quick short interview that they take. That's not a process. That is completely the opposite. A predictable recruiting process means you know exactly where you're looking, you know exactly what you're looking for, and you know how to filter people fast. So where to find reps? The best source, without question, in my personal opinion, is referrals. If you have a network in the online sales space, use it, right? Ask people who you respect, who they know, and you got to see it from the perspective of a referred rep comes with social proof attached to them. Someone vouched for them, which already tells you something. But if you're just starting out and you don't have a network, job boards do work. I really wouldn't recommend like LinkedIn or Indeed or anything of that nature. Niche sales communities is where you want to post these. Post clearly, write a job description that filters out the wrong people, and be prepared to move through ultimately a higher volume of applicants. What you're looking for, right? There really are a couple of things that matter when you're looking for that sales rep. Of course, the first is experience. If someone has a track record, they've been on the phone, they've closed deals, they know what a sales process looks like, that's a green flag. You spend less time training them the fundamentals of this space, which can be difficult to teach someone who has never done this stuff before. And then, of course, the second is their mindset. Honestly, the mindset can ultimately outweigh experience. Skill can be taught. Mindset is a bit more of a difficult one if you've got someone who has a poor mindset starting right. And I've hired people with no sales background who became elite performers because they were coachable, they were hungry, and that combination is extremely important. What you're avoiding is ultimately, those red flags that are the inverse to the green ones. So, no experience, a bad mindset, someone who doesn't have the foundation and that drive to ultimately build. You cannot coach effort. You cannot install hunger. If it's not there in the interview, then of course it won't appear when they pick up the phone or they're on a closing call. Be honest with yourself in that interview. Don't let a good personality convince you to overlook a bad mindset. It's not the same thing. How to interview properly, right? Most people overcomplicate that interview process. They do like multiple rounds, complex assessments, weeks of back and forth, or either they just do like a one call interview in 5 minutes, and that's really not what you want to do. My recommendation, especially if you have not hired a lot of people before, is a 2-round interview structure. Round 1 is screening, so get on a call, understand their background, and just ultimately filter out anyone who obviously was not fit, right? That should take you anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. Round 2 is that real interview, right? This is where you go deep. It's where you understand 3 things, which is their mindset, their skill set, and their culture fit. Mindset is obviously how do they think about failure? How do they respond to a tough month? Are they blaming external factors, or are they looking inward as to the previous results that they've gotten, and then ask them about a time maybe that they lost a deal, what they did about it. A good question to ask. Skill set is obviously what have they actually done, not what they say they can do. So what if they specifically close, at what price point, in what environment? Get specific on these so you can make a specific choice on the person, and then obviously get that specific outcome that we all want. Culture fit is obviously, do they fit how you and the team operate, right? Are they someone you can hold accountable? Are they aligned with how you want your team to be run? This is a little bit harder to assess in that sense, but it does matter a lot, of course. And a great closer with a bad attitude ultimately will just not do any goodness for you. If you've hired a lot of people and you have a strong feel for it, you can do this in one round. I personally run 1 round interviews myself, but if this is new to you, take your time. The cost of a bad hire is every single time extremely high. Next part is the onboarding process, right? This is the section where most businesses fail completely out of all of these. And when I say fail, I mean they just do not have this in place, right? They hire someone, they send them maybe a few PDFs, a few scripts, they put them on a call, and they're curious as to why they're not performing. And the single most important thing that you can build for your sales team as they onboard before anything else is a setter or closer workflow document. This document is the Bible, let's say, for every single rep on your team, right? It contains everything that person could ever need to do their job well. And I mean absolutely everything, right? So from scripts, objection handling, CRM instructions, call structure, ICP breakdown, the product knowledge side of things is very important this on as well. Payment links, communication expectations, roles and responsibilities, how to log a call, how to handle a no-show, all this good stuff, right? So basically, every single thing that a new rep might ask you in the first 2 weeks, it should be answered within that document. Why does this matter, right? Because clarity is everything at the start. A rep who isn't clear on their role, their targets, what softwares they're using and their specific process that they're meant to follow, they're not going to perform, right? And that's not because they're bad, but it's because they've been set up ultimately to fail. When a rep joins your team, they should be able to read that workflow document and have full clarity on what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're going to be measured and how they're going to get the specific outcome that they want, right? That's the standard. Build that document, maintain it, update it every time something changes. It will save you more time than almost anything you can do as a sales manager or a business owner. Setting up the right CRM. You cannot manage what you cannot see, and you cannot see anything without a proper CRM. My recommendation to this, and the one I come back to every single time, is Close CRM. Here's why. Close CRM gives you full visibility on everything your reps are doing, right? Every call logged, every deal tracked, every stage visible. You can see at a glance who's performing, who's not, where deals are falling out of the pipeline if they're updating it correctly, which they should be. But here's the thing, it's not just for you, it's for your reps too, of course. Close is built for speed, right? Your reps can move extremely fast, log quickly, and stay focused on, picking up the phone, taking closing calls, and selling rather than doing admin tasks that are just not as powerful as, what salespeople are meant to do, which is speak to people. The interface on it is clean, the power dollar works very well, and the reporting is also very good, and it just does not slow your people down. When you're setting up your CRM, the most important thing is that everyone uses it consistently, right? A CRM that's, half populated is pretty much useless. It has to be a non-negotiable that whatever it is, every lead or every call gets logged, every outcome gets recorded, every pipeline stage gets updated. So make it a standard from day one. If it's not, in the CRM, didn't happen. Okay, ongoing training. So training is not something you do once at the start and then move on from, right? It's ongoing, and that is essential. Sales is a skill, and like any skill, it degrades without practice, and it sharpens and just gets better with, deliberate work, feedback, and execution. The teams that perform at the highest level are the ones that are consistently reviewing, adjusting, and improving. Here's what ongoing training looks like in practice. Okay, call reviews, right? This is, one of the major, most valuable training tools that you have. I review both good calls and bad calls, and this is important because you need to know ultimately, what's working as much as what isn't working. When you listen to a good call, you can identify the moments that, ultimately made it work and re-engineer that or reverse that and do it again. When you listen to a bad call, you can diagnose ultimately, where it fell apart. Was it the discovery? Did they rush the pitch? Did they not push back on an objection? Whatever that looks like, and then ultimately you can go ahead and fix that, right? Do this regularly, not as, a punishment, but ultimately as a daily habit / standard, because the best sales teams in the world, they review calls constantly to make it a part of their culture. Compensation structure. Getting compensation right is one of the most important decisions you will make for your team, right? Get it wrong and you either overpay underperformers or you underpay top performers and you lose them. My recommended structure is pure performance based, right? No base salary. For setters, it is strictly 5% of cash collected on every deal they contribute to booking or either triaging. A lot of the time, if they're strictly a triager, you can pay them a little bit less, whether that be, 3.5 to 4%. For closers, 10% of cash collected on every deal that they close. And then bonuses on top that are tied to cash collected milestones. So when someone hits a certain number in a month, they get an additional bonus. I do this even on a weekly basis for some of the teams and stuff that I work/consult on. This creates upside for, your top performers and gives everyone something to push for beyond that, that just like baseline commission check that they get. Why no base is a question that a lot of people sometimes ask, because base salaries ultimately, in my opinion, create comfort, right? And the comfort kills performance in sales. When a rep knows that they're going to get paid regardless of what they close, their hunger is different, right? Pure commission keeps people sharp. It aligns your interests perfectly, and they only earn when you earn, right? The reps who are good will love the structure. The ones who push back on it and they want, some sort of guaranteed salary that tells you something about how they view their own performance, right? One thing to keep in mind, your commission percentages need to make sense at your deal size. 10% at a 5K deal size means your closer is earning, 500 per close. If they're closing 10 deals a month, that's 5K, right? It's a good month. The structure needs to feel achievable and worthwhile for the person who is taking this action. Okay, the outline sales process, right? Every rep on your team needs to know exactly how a lead enters the system and how a deal moves from contact to close. And this means a couple of main things. Your sales team needs to be able to look at a document, a Miro board, whatever that looks like, and see the exact sales process from when a lead hits the desk to ultimately them purchasing. And for example, if you are running a VSL book a call funnel, you need to have in that Miro board the actual VSL funnel itself, the purpose of it, the type form, whatever that is. If you're running, an opt-in, you need to have thereafter the amount of emails that are going out, what the no-show process looks like, what the closers are meant to do, what the setters are meant to do, blah, 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 blah. So the entire process from, that lead coming into the system to them purchasing is completely outlined. So they know every single step that possible lead could be in, and therefore we'll be able to communicate with them properly and understand the mindset of that specifically based on where they are within that sales process. Very, very key, right? Culture and accountability. Think of your sales team like a football team. On a football team, everyone has a different position, they have different skills, they have different roles, but they're all playing to ultimately get the same outcome, right? They're aligned, they trust each other, and when one isn't performing, the team feels it and they address it. That's what a high performance sales culture looks like, right? Team alignment. Everyone pulling in the same direction with the same level of commitment and conviction and the same understanding of what success looks like. How do you build it? That's always the question. In my opinion, at least 4 times a week, typically daily team meetings, right? I run team meetings 4 days a week if I'm directly managing a sales team. It's not long, but it's consistent, right? I don't do it for an hour, 2 hours. Typically they're, 30, 45 minutes. In these team meetings, we do 3 things, right? We review calls together, we review the numbers, and we talk about mindset, and I hype them the fuck up. The call reviews we've already covered. The numbers, the goal is obviously give everyone visibility on where the team is against target. And the mindset piece is where you address the attitude of the team. Sales is a mentally demanding job, right? Rejection is constant, and your reps need to be reminded why they're doing this, what they're capable of, and what the outcome that they're going to get at the end of this. And that happens in that team meeting. One-to-ones are also important. You can either do these weekly or bi-weekly. I do recommend them if you have the time. These are individual conversation where you go deeper on each rep, right? What's working, what's not, what they need from you specifically as a manager or as a business owner, what you need from them. And these conversations build trust. They ultimately catch problems early so you can hash them out, move forward accordingly. Accountability, right? This is non-negotiable. Obviously, you set the standards, right? And you hold them to them. If a rep is missing their, specific pickup to book rate, you're able to address it. If a rep is showing up to calls unprepared, you can address it. If a rep's close rate is declining, you find out exactly why. But accountability only works when it's paired with support. You're not holding people accountable to punish them. You're holding them accountable because you believe they can do better and you're willing to help them get there and find solutions to get that outcome at the end of the day. The team that performs is a team that ultimately trusts each other, holds each other to a standard, and are accountable to the goals, targets that they have set out, and they want to win together. The metrics that actually matter, right? You cannot manage a sales team without data, and not just any data, the right data. Here are the 6 key metrics that tell you everything about how your team is performing. Of course, there are more than these, but these are the key ones that I'm always looking at personally. The number 1 is the booking rate, right? So of all of the leads that come in, how many are converting into booked calls, right? And if it's low, sometimes you have either a setter problem or a lead quality problem, problem. It's up to you as a sales manager or business owner to figure that one out. But a lot of the time it is a setup problem, and that's a key metric that you need to know of. Show rate is of all of the book calls get booked onto the closer's calendar, how many actually show up, right? If this is low, your pre-call process needs work. And this is where things like confirmation pages, pre-call email sequences and triage calls from your setters make a real difference. Offer rate, which is of all the calls that take place, of all of those live calls, how many are resulting in an offer or pitch being made, right? If your rep is taking calls and not pitching people, that a lot of the time is, either a setter issue where they're not qualifying the person properly, or that closer is doing something incredibly wrong on that call. Close rate is obviously of all of those live calls that were taken, how many converted into a purchasing customer at the end of the day. Average order value is obviously what is the average deal size, right? This tells you whether your reps are pitching, the right packages, there are too many people coming in on, payment plans, whether your pricing structure is working. And it's important to know this key metric, as if you want to scale with paid traffic, specifically, you want to run ads, you got to have a decent average order value. It's got to be at least like 4 or 5K for you to really scale with ads. Cash collection percentage, which is of the, total portion of contracted revenue, or that total deal size, how much was actually collected in cash. So let's say, for example, you have a 5K package and a lot of people are coming in on 50% upfront payment plans, then that's your cash collection percentage, like 50%, if that's like all the people that are coming in. Very important to know this metric and have a KPI for it, shoot towards it, so you can actually track this and know what you're actually collecting upfront, right? Review these numbers weekly. You can do this as a team, not just privately. When your reps can see their own numbers and also the other reps on the team's numbers, performance, from what I've seen anyway, goes up a lot, right? Visibility creates accountability in both directions. Building and managing a sales team is not complicated, but it does require a system, predictable recruiting, a proper interview process, a clear onboarding document, the right CRM, ongoing training and call reviews, compensation structure that rewards performance, a clearly defined sales process, a culture built on alignment and accountability, and the right metrics being tracked consistently. Of course, I'm not gonna lie, there is more that goes into this, but these are like your main key things that you need to be aware of when building a sales team / infrastructure, right? So put all of these in place and your sales team will do a lot better if they're not already in place. And this is because, a lot of the times it's not the individual reps that are underperforming, it's the system around them, right? And that's what separates the teams that, do serious revenue from the ones that constantly disappoint. If you want help building out any of this for your specific business, that is exactly what we do at Salesify. The link is in the description. Book a call with our team and we'll look at exactly where your sales operation needs the most work. That's it from me. See you in the next one.